Good afternoon. We'll just give it a few moments for everybody to load in through the webinar and then we will begin. So, good afternoon and welcome to our Agriculture and Sustainable Food Programmes webinar. I'm Kaylee. I'm a graduate from Whittle University College and I now work within the marketing team. I'm joined here today by Anya, Henry and John, who are part of our academic team. Before I hand you over to them, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to Whittle University College and why it's a great place to study. So, what to expect from the webinar today? As I say, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to Whittle University College. I'll then hand you over to the academic team so you can then gain a detailed understanding of the courses that we offer in agriculture and sustainable food, and then we will go through to a live Q&A. So please do put through your questions at any point during the webinar and we will get through to these at the end. You can use the question box on your control panel to do this. So firstly, why come to Whittle? We have a long-standing reputation for land-based courses since 1893. We are located in rural Essex, we are close to Chelmsford and we have some great transport links. We are a small and specialist institution. We are friendly, welcoming and supportive and we have a great community feel, meaning that we are an easy stepping stone if you're looking to come to us from school or if you're college or if you're looking to get back into education. At Whittle University College, we offer a wide range of subjects and facilities, and we give that ideal blend of theory and practical learning, putting science into practice. As well as great academics, we have fantastic support services, and they are there to ensure that you succeed and that you are able to make the most out of your student life with us. So, just quickly talking to you about our National Student Survey results. In 2020, we gained a 92% overall student satisfaction. This meant that we were ranked highest in our university sector institution in England. So just to chat to you about our facilities, we have some wonderful facilities and we are a large open campus of around 480 acres. We are surrounded by beautiful gardens and countryside. We have our own dedicated equine centre, which includes our stud facility. We have our Titchmarsh Animal Centre, which is home to around 500 different animals. We have our Canine Therapy Centre, our 100-acre working farm. We also have our library, our Careers Advisory Service. We also have our higher education purpose-built study hub. We have 14 halls of residence on our main site, and we have our garden room restaurant, our Time Out Cafe, and our Starbucks pod. As well as this, we have our recreation and fitness centre, and this includes a gym and weights room. We also have our design studios, research labs, glass houses, multi-faith room. And new for 2021, we have our 3x3 basketball centre, as well as an exercise and health hub. So, as I mentioned, we are in a beautiful rural Essex village called Whittle, and within Whittle you will be able to find a co-op supermarket as well as various pubs. We have our Tiptree tea room as well as a doctor's surgery, a pharmacy and some restaurants. We are really close to Chelmsford city centre, just 2 miles away. And in Chelmsford you'll be able to find 3 fantastic shopping centres. There is a trampoline park as well as an everyman cinema and a new leisure centre. Within Chelmsford, you will find plenty of pubs and clubs and bars to satisfy all budgets and music tastes. And this is somewhere that you will go and spend some time in student nightlife at Whittle. Looking at further away, we are just less than 40-minute train drive to London, only a 40-minute drive to Southend Seafront, and only a half-an-hour drive from Stansted Airport. So university is a big step in life. So living away needs to have that home from spirit experience. And this is something that you will get at Whittle University College. So as I mentioned previously, we have 14 halls of residence and these are all on our main campus. And we have around 400 rooms in total. We offer a range of room options from a single room to a double ensuite. This depends on your budget and your preference. Within our accommodation, there are a common room and lounge with a small kitchen for allowing to make you snacks and small meals of a weekend. Included in your accommodation price is a meal allowance, and you can use this within our garden room restaurant, our Time Out Cafe, as well as our Starbucks pod. And in the Time Out Cafe, you're also able to buy groceries and snacks. At Writtle, we have a laundrette on site, and you can use this via an app on your mobile phone. All of our first year students are guaranteed a place in our halls of residence. However, you can stay with us in your duration of the course at Writtle. So, as well as great academic teams, there is also a life outside of learning. At Writtle, we have some fantastic support teams, from our learning support and our wellbeing team to our student success team and our career support. We have a great welcoming student union. We have a great social life and activities. Last year had to be COVID safe, but we were still able to do some bits. Hopefully this year everything's going to be kind of back to some normality. So we'll be able to get you involved in some bar events, some online activities, as well as getting involved with some themed fundraising nights and some sports and societies nights as well. A Students' Union is a small and friendly team, and there are opportunities for you to get involved with them outside of your study time at Writtle. So before I hand you over to the academic team, I'm just going to show you a brief video of an introduction to Writtle, just a visual video for you guys to take a look at.
The great outdoors, and even greater indoors, an education for the real world, putting theory into practice, smaller class numbers and supportive tutors, highest overall for student satisfaction, breaking new ground, breaking the mould for almost 130 years, around 200 open hectares outside Chelmsford, a close community that will welcome you inside, making lifelong friends, experiences for life, being just 35 minutes from London, but a world away. Discover our hands-on, industry-recognised courses, putting theory to the test, putting alumni in high places, putting your career first, putting science into practice.
So I hope that just gives you a brief overview of Writtle University College and a nice introduction there. So now I'm just going to hand you over to Henry, who is going to talk to you about the courses that we offer.
Good afternoon. My name's Henry Matthews and I'm the Acting Course Manager for Agriculture. And this afternoon I'm going to talk to you about the courses that we offer. And what I'm going to talk about is not just agriculture, but also we offer courses in sustainable food production, post-harvest technology and crop production. And within each of those there are variations which I will talk about when we get to it. We're also currently developing an MBA in the areas that I'm going to talk about this afternoon. It's been a very eventful year, a very significant year for the world, for the UK, but also for agriculture and the food industry. And I think that the importance of what we study and what we deliver at Writtle has been emphasised during the course of the last year. So this appeared last year, suggesting that actually we didn't need farmers in the UK. But it wasn't long. This Mail on Sunday came out in March, early March in 2020. But by April, there was a recognition of the importance of the food supply and how actually with some products we're actually quite vulnerable here in the UK to food security. And these are some of the issues that we will discuss. As the coronavirus, the pandemic progressed, increasingly the issues surrounding the food supply chain and production became apparent, and these headlines in various papers and on news items appeared for us to think about our food system, because obviously it's a very fundamental thing that we need to address. And the issues were really exposed by the coronavirus when it hit us last year. And there was a suggestion that our food system is fragile, which it is. But actually, I think the supply chains actually proved to be very resilient to the shock that the pandemic provided. But in our courses, we look at this and we evaluate this all the way from the producer all the way through to the retailer and the consumer. So what impact has the pandemic had? Well, for consumers, more food's being consumed at home. Meals are being planned better, and there's actually less waste. Although there's a lot of waste to start with, this actually has been reduced. And also demand for different food categories. And this has had a knock-on effect back along the supply chain, and farmers have had to adjust accordingly. And we have a student whose father provided or provides potatoes into fish and chip shops across the country. And obviously with the shutdown, he had to find alternative markets. And this just is proof again of the importance and significance of the industry and how it's had to adapt in the last 12 months. And further back along the supply chain, home deliveries become crucial. Local stores have become popular again. And for producers, there's been an upsurge in box schemes. And those farmers that have farm shops have had a very profitable and good year. And that we've had examples of farm shops in the area that we visit with students. But of course, one of the other issues has been labour availability, and the movement of migrant labour to pick fruit and vegetables, particularly, has been subject to some checks. But looking globally, now I've just said that the UK food systems proved to be very resilient, but so has the world system. And keeping the world fed has been a big challenge for agriculture and for the food chains. But there is a crisis around the corner, and it is thought, and this was in the Guardian in June, that the world actually faces a very severe food crisis, which the world is going to have to address. And obviously, as agriculturalists, as growers, as farmers, we need to address that. But the question of the 9 billion people is with us and has been for some time. Estimates that the world population will hit this figure and possibly even more by 2050, again, puts the emphasis on the industry that we're going to have to deliver in the next few years to be able to feed what is a rapidly expanding world population. But also we have the environment to think about, and I'm sure you're aware of the issues of deforestation, the loss of rainforest, and again, this is something that we look at, and we are very aware of the fact that the rainforest is being destroyed to make way for beef and soya production is something that we need to look at, and the world needs to look at. And this is another one of the issues that we address. Climate change. All of agricultural production at the moment is concerned with climate change, and again, an issue that's been with us for some time. But I think this is going to come to the fore increasingly during the course of the next 5 years. And I think farmers are going to have to face up to things like the use of nitrogen fertilizers and what alternatives they might have to use to be able to produce food sustainably. Sort of looking at the UK agriculture bill, that's been quite controversial and has gone through recently in the last 6 months or so. As we've left the European Union, we've developed our own policy, and there's some controversy looking at what future trade deals we might have with other countries and what that might mean to the quality of the food we might be putting in front of our customers. And the greening of agricultural policy as well, and this appeared in The Economist in November. Can farming be greener after the Common Agricultural Policy? And that is one of the objectives of our new policy, the new agriculture bill, is to look at that. And ministers have looked at how farming policy will develop. You know, do we need to go into less livestock production, and what can be done to encourage farmers to farm more sustainably? And then we had this shock to the supply chain in December. I'm sure you'll remember the lines of trucks and the car parks full of lorries as the border was shut in December. And I think that just highlighted some of the issues of the vulnerability and the issues in our supply chains. And this even more so for Ireland. And you know, Ireland is in the news at the moment about the possible issues with borders. and the political situation about the extension of the period whereby some of the checks don't have to be carried out, and this was in Northern Ireland in January. And these are all things that we need to address and think about. And then even more recently, in February, the Dasgupta review was published, and looking at the economics of biodiversity, something we've not put a value on previously, and it's an externality of agriculture, the impact, particularly some of the farming practices that we've adopted since the Second World War, really, to boost production, has come at a cost, and that cost has not been met. And this review addressed the issue of what the cost of biodiversity is and what actually we've lost. So where does agriculture go? You know, what are we looking for? And we will be looking, and we do look at the sort of conventional agriculture. So that's cereal production, obviously in East Anglia, we're right in the centre of that, and also animal production, whether that's beef, sheep or dairy. But also we need to look at other potential sources of food, but perhaps we need to think more about the environment in which we operate. And as I've said before, the policy of the UK government is now looking at environment, and the new ELMs, they're called, the environmental land management schemes that are going to come into place, are going to reward farmers for carrying out practices that boost, enhance biodiversity, and look at flood alleviation and carbon capture and public goods. And the mantra of the new agricultural bill is public money for public goods. But other ways, other means of production. So there's agroforestry there, Wakelin's farm in Suffolk, looking at combining trees with production. New crops, it's quinoa or quinoa, which is now being grown in Essex. We need to remember that over 90% of farms in the world are small. They're less than a hectare. Vertical farming at the other end of the scale, the sort of high levels of technology involved in growing food vertically in containers or underground. Floating farms, this is a dairy farm in the Netherlands, perhaps even insects or algae. So there are lots of alternative food sources that are part of what the future that agriculture faces. Okay, so they're the issues. They're the issues, and they are very much in the limelight at the moment, and they're issues that the world has to address. So we are at the coalface of some big changes. So these are the programs: a BSc honours in agriculture, regenerative systems agriculture, regenerative systems and livestock, and sustainable food production. So we're looking at a suite of courses there that deal with food production from the farm or from the grower, from the orchard, all the way through to the consumer. And as you move further down the supply chain, the food production element becomes more important. And that course really is about the value chain, retailing, wholesaling, and processing. We also offer postgraduate, so there's an MSc in post-harvest technology, an MSc in crop production agriculture, an MSc in crop production horticulture. So we offer courses at those two levels. And as I said at the start, we also have in production, I would say, or sort of in design, an MBA as well. The themes that we talk about and we discuss, and the themes I've already sort of started to elaborate on, run throughout all of our courses. So obviously food production is right at the top. Food security, you know, the vulnerability of the UK food system to shocks. Supply chains, and that's from the farm all the way through to the consumer. Use of natural resources, soil and water particularly. Soil is something that has to be the focus of our courses now. I'm part of the generation of farmers who lived through the sort of heavily subsidised farming of the 60s, 70s and 80s, when soil was something that was just a medium. It wasn't something we cared too much about, because if there was a problem, we could go to the shed and get out some fertiliser or pesticides, but things have moved on since then. Water use, really important. It's thought the next world war will be fought over water. So big resource issues. Landscapes and biodiversity I've already mentioned. Consumer behaviour. As farmers and growers, we need to understand what it is the consumer wants. And the pandemic has actually shifted that slightly, and we need to adapt accordingly. Climate change I've mentioned. Policy I've already mentioned. Precision farming, using the technology that is available to make our farming practices more sustainable. And how do we combine all of the elements of our of the farm business, whether it's finance, human resources, operations, marketing? They all have to be combined together, and that comes in entrepreneurship and diversification. And diversification increasingly is important on farms in this area. I think we're over nearly 70% of farms have an alternative source of income, and that's important for the business and also important for rural communities. Underpinning everything we do are the Sustainable Development Goals, which were developed by the United Nations. And if you look across those, many of those are associated with agriculture. And one of the things I've done with our first years is to actually pick out the ones that are connected with agriculture and what agriculture could contribute to these. So just thinking about our courses in a bit more detail. So this is the regular standard BSc Honours in Agriculture. Probably not too many surprises there. The top line is something that is done by every RITL student, whatever their course is. The next line is about sustainability and the sort of politics and economics and natural resource management that I've already discussed. The pink line follows livestock and the green line follows the sort of arable and fresh produce. We have the science in the first year and then a business line at the bottom there. And I think that just emphasised the diversity of agriculture and the skills required to be successful in the industry. So this is our new course, one we're really proud of, which is, I think, tapping into where agriculture is going, the direction of travel. And this is the regenerative course. And we were the first in the country to put together a regenerative agriculture course. Again, we're very proud of that. So many of the elements of the traditional type of agriculture course that you've just seen are here, but you can see that the green line represents the regenerative approach. And this module here focuses on soil particularly. And then as you see, we got organic and sustainable farming systems through agroforestry to the natural resource management as well. And that is one that's proving quite popular, and we're having a lot of inquiries about this particular course at the moment, because it does, as I say, taps into the direction of travel of policy and also of consumer demands. Okay, and this is our first year group. So when the guys arrived in September, some of them had signed up for the regenerative, some of them had signed up for the traditional course. They all chose to do the regenerative. And they are a really good group. And perhaps one of the interesting things about the group from our point of view, like most of our groups actually, is the diversity. So we've got lads that have come off farms, and then we've got people in their 30s who've chosen to change career and bring quite a different experience to the course that the guys that are working on farms have done. But it works well together because they've each got life experiences and career experiences which they can share. And the other thing that I would say is the nationalities there. So we've got Cyprus, South Africa, Turkey, Germany, Australia, what's the other one? Yeah, and Nigeria. So we've got a range. And one of the things I would say at this stage is that you don't need to have an agricultural background or a farming background to come on our course. So again, we actually encourage people from outside of agriculture because I think they bring something to the course that perhaps doesn't happen in places that only have people from agricultural backgrounds. And I think there's a recognition in the industry, and this is something I've discussed at length with people, there's actually a recognition that we need diversity. The future of agriculture is in diversity, and that is in diversity in so many different areas. Okay, and this is a new course as well, and this goes further down the value chain. So we're looking at, we've got this agribusiness management, which is shared with the regenerative, but But the change really comes here when we start to look at value chains, international value chains. And one of the features of this particular course is a study tour. And we have a very good link with university in the Netherlands and also in Finland. We have a combined module in which students would study for 6 weeks in each of the institutions. And they study in the Netherlands, they look at market research, and they look at the product that they might put in front of consumers through market research in this Dutch university, which is in one of the big fresh produce growing areas. They come to Rittel to look at how that might be produced, and they go to Finland to look at launch and sustainability and the bioeconomy that goes with that product. So they choose their own product. They work in a multinational team, so students from Netherlands, Finland, and from us, and they go through the whole process. And obviously there is all sorts of other skills and things that the students will take from that experience, but that's quite an innovative thing that we have in that particular course. But as I say, it's moving further down the chain, looking at sort of the marketing, looking at the product development and procurement, that type of thing. The postgraduate program really sort of builds on the same themes. So you can see that we've got sustainable crop production here and post-harvest systems management, which stretches across the two semesters, but also food security and sustainable agriculture, which is a module that I teach, and then the other optional modules down here as well. So that really is the opportunity for students to either we have guys that come in from industry to get the qualification and to boost their knowledge and understanding, but also we have people that move on from our undergrad course into these courses as well. And I think that what we're offering here will be enhanced by the provision of an MBA. So what do you need to join us? Well, for the undergrad, 96 points, A-level grade C or above, IB, BTEC, you've got what's required there. But we're also very interested in people that have an experience, interest or background in agriculture. And if you can demonstrate to us that you have any of those, then we will look at you for what we call the certificate, which is the first year of the full program. And provided that you pass and you get sufficient marks in that first year, then you can go on and take the rest of the course. And we have a lot of our students, I think at least half of the guys in our first year have come down this route, and all will go on. So, you know, if you have a disaster at A-level or there are issues that you think you might not get these, then it's not the end of the world. We will still look at you as an applicant and judge you on that, not just on your academic. We would like the academic qualifications, obviously, but if you haven't got them, then we will still consider you. And if you can exhibit enough experience, interest or background, or all three, then we will take you. So who are we? What's our staff profile? Well, I specialise really in agronomy and also value chain management, and I've been fortunate enough to visit many countries that are listed there amongst them. Working abroad, I farmed for 25 years in not that far from Rittel in Essex, cereals and sheep. I'm currently working on 2 projects, one in Kyrgyzstan and one in Azerbaijan, on value chains and marketing. Chris is into sustainable agriculture, but particularly insects, both as a pest, but also as a potential food source. We have Cami, who looks more at the protected cropping, and looks at vertical farming, hydroponics, software, so the technology. Some very good contacts. He's come to us relatively recently, but has got some useful contacts who've given presentations. We had one from Thanet Earth a few weeks ago, which are a huge producer of tomatoes in Kent. Roy, who's sort of a crop scientist, so specialises in crop and plant physiology, and particularly in fertiliser and late diseases in cereals. James outside vegetables, vegetable and fruit production, and teaches on the agricultural program in World and Alternative Crops. Nick, poultry, does some of the business as well, and some of the general livestock teaching. Robin, international finance, risk management, international supply chains, has come from a background of working in industry. Anya, who's on the call today, who's head of school, but is herself a plant botanist and pathologist. And then we have Peter, who keeps an eye on us from a sustainability point of view. He's professor in biodiversity, again, somebody who's done a lot of international work. So a relatively small team, but with various areas of expertise which we bring to all of the different courses. And I think one of the advantages of being at Riddle is you do teach across a number of different courses, so you get insights and feedback on all of the aspects of food, whether that's at farm level or further down the supply chain. How are you taught? Well, there are the conventional classes, but as I'm sure you would be aware that things have been different this last year, and a lot of the teaching is done now online. We use MS Teams, and we've, I think, developed some pretty good strategies for delivering online. We had to learn pretty quickly, and I'm confident that we have done. We use a lot of practicals. We have a farm, which I'll talk about in a minute, which features in our courses quite heavily, but we also have labs as well. So that's a really important part. Small group tutorials, even our classes aren't particularly big, and we do a lot of visits, and again, I'll come on to those in a minute. So assessment, predominantly, well, not predominantly, we have a diverse range of ways of assessing students. So it's the essays, reports, presentations increasingly, debates, which we're using now. I had Anya and I had a session with the first years last week on a debate on the resilience of the UK food system, and it was a role play, we gave them each different viewpoints which they had to argue from, which worked really well. I have to say I was a bit sceptical about it with a group of first years, but they took to it really well. And so that's a different way of assessing. We recognise that different people have different skills. We also have exams, but less exams as you go through the course. I think my guys in the first year have one exam this year. Okay, just as I said, visits. So this was the visits 2019-20. So this was pre-lockdown. So just going across there, the first picture there is Doe's show, and actually we've got students there from the exchange. So we've got German students German Dutch students in there. The next picture along there is a wet day looking at integrating sheep into an arable farm. So I can't quite see that picture, got something in the way, but I guess that's the turkey farm. This is the regenerative farm that holds the groundswell event over in Hertfordshire. Ex-student farm manager there, or was. Another ex-student, he's a farm manager over near Harlow, largest grower of soya in the country, and that's the third year students looking at a field of soya. Fruit and veg production, some organic, Nacton, Ipswich, home farm Nacton, and there's a farm near Housestead where Chris Butler does a lot of conservation work, and he's a national chairman of the Farming and Wildlife Advisory Group. So we have a lot of ex-students and contacts that we're able to call on for visits, and that's a main feature of our delivery. And I think we have the advantage of being relatively small. We could put a class onto a minibus and go down the road and see what's going on in my cousin or a farmer or an ex-student. We have very strong industry links. If you look at that, sorry, that's gone too quickly. Very strong industry links. Some of the names on there you'll recognise. So Agri is one of the major providers of agronomy in the country. They have an office, one of their main offices, very close to Riddle at Throws Farm near Dunmow. We've got Home Farm Nacton, I mentioned. The Agricultural Horticulture Development Board, we've got good contact with the local knowledge transfer, Teresa. Ex-student at Garford's, which is a company which make robotic weeders. Tesco and probably needs no introduction. Hodmedod's are a company that retail and get farmers to grow sort of specialty crops, so things like navy beans, chickpeas, that type of thing, lentils in East Anglia. RAGT are a big national seed company. So we have these good industry links, many of which contain people that have gone through RITL. We've got this trial underway. We host and carry out trials. So this is looking at a vertical growing system, which I mentioned earlier. And we've got another few projects that we're looking at the moment. I mentioned Hodmedod's just now. We're looking to put some trials of chickpeas, lentils, quinoa onto the college farm. And this is another one. If I'm honest, I don't have too much to do with this side of things, but Cami, who I mentioned, would be leading on this, because this is another potential future route for people growing food. A lot of publicity surrounding this at the moment. Like I mentioned, the farm, we have 40 hectares of arable land, an 80 sow pig herd, 75 ewe sheep flock, and 100 fattening cattle, and also a mid-tier environmental scheme. And I've just come out of a meeting this afternoon looking at how we can make this regenerative. So we're looking at what type of crops we can grow, looking at how we integrate livestock into that system, looking at what machinery we need. We're currently, and please don't hold me to this, but we're looking at the moment at growing something called population wheat, which was developed by the agroforestry farm in Suffolk, Wakelands. And this is a new way of looking at growing wheat, which is a combination of 29 different varieties, with different disease resistance, which is likely to be more resilient and therefore require less inputs. And we're also perhaps looking at combining a cereal with a legume as well, with benefit, and looking how we can graze off some of our cover crops, looking at putting crops between crops for sheep. So we're looking at a more circular integrated system to reinforce what we're doing with the regenerative agriculture course. We've been around a long while. RITL was founded in 1893 in the centre of Chelmsford and moved out to the current site in the 1930s. The motto of RITL, or the original motto, was "Time tries the truth in everything," and I think that's really appropriate for agriculture and horticulture. And I think what's happened in the last year has certainly proved that, and I think it's going to be so in the next 5 or 10 years. I think there are big changes coming to agriculture and food production in the UK, and we will be part of that. So what makes us special? Well, the new programme that I introduced earlier, we really believe it's the direction of travel and reflecting the needs of the industry and of consumers. We've done a lot of research. We've talked to people, talked to farmers, talked to people in the industry, and thought about where it is that industry is going. And the farm is a big part of it. And I think, from what I've just said, illustrates that we're adapting the farm now to meet the needs of the course. And students are really at the centre of what we do. We have small groups, we get to know the students really well, and we're able to differentiate what we offer to individual students. And that's part of the focus and support. We're flexible, and we're able to cater, as I say, for individuals and their learning style. Employment, well, huge range of employment opportunities: farm manager, production manager, consultant, marketing, farm assurance. We've got an ex-student who works for the Red Tractor Scheme, who does the inspections. Interestingly, she comes and does a session for one of my modules, the markets and supply chain module, but she's been stuck in Zimbabwe since October, but is going to be delivering a session on Zoom to the guys. Government advisor, agronomist. Agronomist is a really popular one. There's a couple of cohorts of students who occupy most of the trainee agronomists and agronomist positions in East Anglia, whether it's Frontier or Agri or Hutchinson's. Supermarket buyer, animal nutritionist, land agent. We've got quite a few people in sort of Stratton Parker, that type of organisation. and grain traders, and many more. So there are huge opportunities out there all along the supply chain in agriculture and food, which are available. And the figure is talking about 50, 60,000 jobs in this area in the next few years. So many opportunities. A couple of testimonials. I know that one of those is from a student who joined us having had no experience in agriculture at all. Okay, she had a boyfriend at Young Farmers who persuaded her to join us at Writtle. Her sort of career path had been a part-time job in Next, but she went on to get a first. She went on to work for ADAS, one of the big consultancy companies, and now works for an independent agronomist across East Anglia. And we've had a huge variety of people coming in, as I said earlier, and I always remember the young lady from Brentwood who'd done A-levels in theatre studies, English literature and art, and again came out with a 2-1 and really knowledgeable, and felt that her experience at Writtle had been really worthwhile. So looking at what are we looking for, what are the attributes, and I think one of the things I would emphasise as I get towards the end here is that we will teach you knowledge, we will teach you facts, but what we're looking at is skills. You know, things are changing very quickly in agriculture, and hopefully we give you the ability to make judgments based on your skill set rather than something that you might have learned. There's no blueprint for growing crops or marketing food. It changes, you know, and the last 12 months have proved that, and that's what we're endeavouring to impart, is the ability to think, to make decisions, to be flexible and be confident and problem solve. So we're looking for future leaders. So just to finish, 5 reasons to study at Writtle. Hopefully you picked up on some of these already. So this is a sort of reprise. Food is life. You know, what could be more important than producing food? Now, well-being depends on sustainable production of affordable, nutritious food. I think nutrition is something important that we looked at, and one of the outcomes of the pandemic is that people are starting to think about diet a bit. There was a discussion on the radio this morning about the contribution that obesity had made to people suffering from COVID-19, and I think that's a discussion to be had. There's a lot more interest now in organic food. You know, people are looking at sort of what they call the health halo. We have farm field laboratory facilities, which are an integral part of what we do. And this integrated thinkers, you know, so it's not just thinking about how you produce, you know, what is the science about producing wheat, but it's about, you know, what are the decisions, what is going to influence you, you know, what are the challenges and how can you overcome that? Because what we teach you now might not be appropriate and applicable in 5 years' time, but hopefully you will have the skills to be able to make decisions. We're looking at individuals and independent learning. I've said that already. And we have a big and a long-standing collaboration with partners in businesses in the farming industry. Thank you for listening. And if there are any questions, then please ask them. My email address is at the bottom there. But I hope now we're able to show a couple of clips of students who left last summer. And I'll hand you back to Kaylee, hopefully.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So after a great presentation, before we go into the question and answer, as Henry says, I'm just going to show you a couple of videos from our previous students and how they've found Writtle. So just bear with me one moment while I bring those up for you. So that's one student, and I'll just show you one of our international students, and then we will get on to your questions. Perfect. So I think that gives you quite a good understanding of how our students feel about studying with us at Writtle. So one final thing before we go through to your questions, just some more information on where you can find out a little bit more about our agriculture schemes. Obviously, you can just go directly to our website. We are offering next Wednesday one-to-one sessions with our academic teams. So if you do think of some more questions after the webinar, please do book onto that. You can do so by, you'll receive a link in an email tomorrow, or you can do so by using the QR code on your screen now. We also have our virtual open day hub where you can find information on our course booklets. There's also information on our support functions, as well as details on student finance, our accommodation booklets as well. So please do take a look at that. And finally, we have our brand new 360-degree virtual tour. Here you can take a look around our campus and view all of our amazing facilities via our website. So you can access that on our website as well. So now we will just go through to your questions. Please do pop them through if you have some, and we will get through to those now. So firstly, how many days a week would I be in if things are back to normal?
If things are back to normal, then you would expect to be in 3 days a week, or possibly 3.5. It depends a little bit on how the timetabling runs. At the moment, they're only well, when they're back at Writtle, they'll be back in 1 day a week and 1 day online. But it's usually 3 days.
Perfect, thank you. And what is the ratio of practical and theory within the course?
Again, that varies across the course. So in different years there'll be more practical. But it's important to remember this is a HE course, and what we're teaching is the ability to manage people doing practical rather than actually hands-on. But we appreciate that you need to have an understanding of the hands-on to be able to manage people. So the animal people at the moment do far more because we've got the sheep and the pigs that they can go on. But we're hoping that with the regenerative, as we take more of a role in managing the farm, there'll be more tasks for people to do on the arable side as well.
Perfect, thank you. Is there an option for online learning?
No, there isn't at the moment. Without wishing to be too controversial, I'm not sure if there is the opportunity to have face-to-face and talk to people. I think it's better. I think online works in certain situations, but I think one of the things, and I'm talking personally now, I found is that actually complete online isn't quite as effective as it would be if you were in a classroom and you can get discussion groups going and you can go and walk out onto a field.
Perfect, thank you. Which direction is the proposed MBA heading towards?
It's really to reinforce the regenerative. So we're looking at sort of that aspect, sort of land management, looking forward to within the sort of context of the new agricultural policy. So it's going to feature regenerative, looking at circular economics, green economics, sustainability. That's the angle, because we really believe that's the way the industry is going and it should go.
Perfect, thank you. If a course states 2 years part-time, are you able to complete this in less time, i.e. a year and a half?
I wonder if that's a question about the master's degree and doing a master's degree is normally a 1 calendar year, sort of September to September. But if you do it part-time, you would do it over 2 years. But the second part of the second year is the dissertation. So sometimes students are able to do the dissertation away from college. I don't know if that answers the question. It may be whoever sent the question might like to write into college and just explain it a little bit more clearly, and we'll try and answer that more fully.
Perhaps if I can just jump in there, I think it really hinges on how much part-time you mean, because we're sort of anticipating that's a 50% over 2 years, but it really hinges on what your availability is and how much of the course you can do. So we're very open to that being a different percentage in each year, but I think the best thing to do is actually talk to us individually. If you can write in, we can talk to you and find out exactly what you need.
Perfect, thank you very much for that. So what times are you on campus, i.e. 9 till 3 p.m?
At the moment, it's 9 till, actually at the moment it's 9 till 6, but that's because because we're cramming everybody into 1 day a week, we've had to extend the working day. But currently, it would be 9 till 5.
Perfect, thank you very much. So we'll just wait a few more moments to see if we have any other questions that load into the question box.
Whilst we're waiting, I just wonder if I could say hello to, just say I'm John Cullum. I've probably written to quite a number of you. Looking at who's attending the webinar today, about half are on the agriculture side of things, which Henry looks after. I look after the MSc courses, and at the moment the sustainable food production. So it's nice to see some of you who've applied sitting here watching us. It's very nice to have Kenneth, who I know quite well, has written to, who's listening to us from Ghana. If anyone's from further afield, send us a message as to where you're listening from. So yes, my role is very much the recruitment of these students. If you haven't another question, just one thing that's very hot off the press, if we've got anyone who's already done a first degree, already has a BSc, it looks very likely again that all these agriculture undergraduate courses we've mentioned today, that you'll have the possibility of being able to get a student loan again for tuition fees to do agriculture, regenerative agriculture, or sustainable food production. So we will absolutely know this for certain next week, but if you're interested in that, then please get in touch with us, and we'll be able to tell you about that. We're just waiting for confirmation from the student finance, but it looks as though that's a possibility, which is really good.
And thank you very much. So we have got time for one more question. And say, if you do have some more questions after this, please book yourself onto a one-to-one session for chat with our academic staff. So when are you planning to announce the MBA?
So if I can probably answer that. The MBA is just going through a validation process, and you should, if you consult our website, you'll have a course diagram on there fairly soon, which will say subject to validation. So that will be the first announcement of it, with a little bit more detail about the MBA, and we're hoping to get that up within the next month, so on the website. So watch that space, and you'll have more details. But again, if you need more information, please contact us.
Thank you very much. So that does bring us to the end of our webinar. Thank you all very much for joining us, and big thank you to our academic team for giving up their evening to show such a fantastic presentation. So before we go, I'm just going to show you a brief video on how to access our virtual applicant hub. As I say here, you can access lots of course booklets as well as other information surrounding courses and support services. So that will be it from us. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you have a lovely weekend.